first of all, thank you so much for coming. And another reason why I didn't want Karina to say too much about me, I think, is because I feel like I'm going to share with you my life story, if you don't mind, and just don't want to get too narcissistic. So the name of my talk is Trusting Nature. And so I figured I'd start from the beginning with my connection to nature. And it all started growing up in the little town of Haiku on the island of Maui. This is the house that I grew up in. And the funny thing is that this picture was taken a couple of years after we moved out, after the house had been fixed up. And so if you can imagine what a shack it was when we lived there, it's pretty funny. And so needless to say, my parents didn't have a lot of money, but the life that they provided for us while we lived here was just absolutely magical. We just had a few farm animals, a lot of plants to harvest, and just some really cool companions. We had a river in the back of our house that my sister Christy and I got to play in whenever we wanted to. And because my parents were always trying to work so hard and make something of themselves, we often just got to run free and explore, and we loved it. And we were never really alone because we always had these strays that I would find and adopt and bring home, and they would become not only our pets, but truly our best friends and our guardians. We had no neighbors, no people around us, no pavement. So really the only thing that we knew was nature and family. It's a follow-up photo of that. Actually, so these were not just any pets, but that was our cat Bobcat and our dog Sam. And they were the two that would always go explore the woods with my sister and I. Sam's name would always change to Woof whenever we'd explore, so it was Bobcat and Woof. But I just wanted to tell you a story of one day when my sister Christy and I went exploring in the woods behind our house, and we had Bobcat and Woof along with us. And basically, we were on a mission that day to pick these fruit called strawberry guavas. They're these little red fruit. They're red, and they're really sweet and tart, and they're absolutely delicious. But another reason why we wanted to pick them is because they were one of the few fruits where we could actually reach them. The trees don't get too tall. And so our method of doing this was one of us would go down on all, hands and knees, and the other would get a boost and be able to climb on them just enough to reach the fruit. And so we did this all day, where basically we were boosting and picking and filling our T-shirts filled with these strawberry guavas and eating them along the way and just happy to bring them home to our parents. But we had so much fun that we just kept walking. And we started going into a part of the woods that we've never gone into before. And we got to this one place that it just had a clearing in the woods where all the trees just seemed to kind of move out of the way. And as soon as we got there, we saw the biggest and the most beautiful and the most amazing rock that we had ever seen in our lives. And it was huge. It was huge, and it was perfectly round. It was this big, round, smooth boulder, and we've never seen another rock like that before. And as soon as we saw it, we were like 5 and 6, and as soon as we saw it, we dropped our guavas, we looked at the rock, we looked at each other, we looked back at the rock, like we knew, and when we just, wow. And my sister, who's 1 year older than me, I said to her, "What is it?" And she's like, "It's a god." And she points it and she says, "That's God rock." I didn't even know what that really meant, but it made absolutely perfect sense to me. And I just ran up to God rock and I threw my little arms around him and I just hugged him and told him how nice it was to meet him. And I gave my sister a boost, and she climbed up on God rock and helped me up, and we spent all day laying and playing on this beautiful God rock, eating our strawberry guavas, telling him our dreams, and having the most wonderful afternoon in the woods. And for whatever reason, we decided to keep him our little secret. And we liked him so much that a couple of days later, when we were at home, my sister comes up to me and she says, you know, if we really love God Rock, we should probably give him something. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, but if you really, really love someone, then you should probably give them your most favorite thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I looked at her, and she had in her hands her favorite set of colored markers. And I really can't explain enough how special this was. We didn't have any material things. And it had pinks and turquoises and all types of colors that she would keep organized. And there she was standing there, ready to go give it to God Rock. And when I saw how much that meant to her, I really felt like, okay, I have to step up and do something too. And so my favorite possession was always food related, and still is. And it was my strawberries. I had this strawberry plant that I adored. And every morning, I would wake up and I would run out to my strawberry plant. And I would literally run, because if I didn't get there in time, this one mama chicken would beat me there and eat all the fresh fruit before me. So the next morning, I sprinted out to the plant, and it was a wonderful harvest. There was about 5 ripe berries. And I picked them all, and I had my other favorite possession, this little jewelry box my grandmother gave me. And it had shells on the outside and red velvet on the inside. And I put all my berries in there. And Christy, Bobcat Wolf, and I set off that day to go give our gifts to God Rock. And we had another wonderful day playing with him and taking care of him. And later that night, when I was doing my chores, it was raining. And it always rained. Haiku is one of the rainiest towns you can possibly imagine. And in fact, the chore that I was doing was that every night after my mom would cook dinner, I would take the same pots she cooked dinner with, and I'd place them around the house to catch all the leaks of our old tin roof. And I loved this job because some leaks were bigger than others, so they needed bigger pots than others, and I just knew the perfect spot for every pot. And so as I finished this chore, Christy looks at me and she's freaking out, and I can just tell. And I said, what? And she's like, it's raining. And I was like, so? And she's like, so God Rock is going to get sick and he's going to catch a cold. He's going to get wet. And I was just like, oh no, really? God Rock's going to get sick, and well, what do we do about that? And so she, my wonderful older sister, comes up with this plan that we're going to go into the closet and take Mom's extra blankets, and we're going to sneak out there at night. It's okay, it's, moonlight, everything. We have Bobcat and Wolf, they're going to escort us, and we're going to go cover up God Rock so he doesn't get sick. And we did exactly that. We snuck out there, and we took all these blankets, and we covered every inch of this massive boulder, God Rock. He looked like a ridiculous cotton ball. And we just tucked him in and told him, don't worry, we're keeping you warm. Snuck back home, crawled into bed a little wet and muddy, but just so satisfied and content with ourselves. Little did we know that a couple weeks later, our older brother, who was a teenager, got blamed for the missing blankets. Nobody bothered to ask us. We did not know. But a couple months later, he also went walking in the woods. All I remember is coming home to my mom, who was on fire. I mean, she's a really nice lady, but when she gets mad, it can be scary. And it was this day. She was just on fire and yelling. And as soon as we stepped into the living room knowing we were busted, there we saw it. Right in the middle of the living room were all of her blankets completely covered in mud and mildew. And of course, right there, just giving us away, was a set of waterlogged markers and a little jewelry box with moldy strawberry remains. And I don't even know what my mom was yelling at me because it was coming so fast, but all I know is that she kept demanding to know why. Why would you take these things? Why would you take these nice things that we have, that we gave to you, and ruin them? And I looked at Christy, and she was just looking at her feet. And so I just copied, okay? So we stood there looking at our feet. Well, my mom just got more and more mad, saying, answer me. And then my brother says, they used the blankets to cover up a big, stupid rock, Mom. And that's when I kind of lost it, and I said, he's not stupid. And then my mom was just like, what? Like, you took my blankets and you covered up a rock? And then my sister tried to come to my side and defend me. And she said, Mom, it's a special rock, and it's really big. And we thought it was a god. We named it God Rock, and we didn't want it to get sick. And before she could even finish, I heard my brother laugh. And I saw how mad my mom was getting. And I just wanted her to stop talking. And for the first time, everything she said sounded so stupid. And it was just crazy to me that those words had just, when just spoken between the two of us in the woods, they were magical. But when spoken in front of other people, they just sounded dumb. And I just got so mad. I remember standing there looking at that mess and being so mad. Like, I was embarrassed. And I wasn't just mad that I ruined my mom's blankets. I was mad at myself for believing in God Rock to begin with. I was mad that I truthfully loved him, And I was mad that we somehow thought we could take care of him. And I remember that day just staring at that mess and telling myself that I would never be that stupid again. So fast forward a few years, we got a little older. My parents, all their hard work started to pay off, and their careers started to kind of take off. And so they moved us out of that old shack, and they moved us into a subdivision. And so for the first time in our lives, we had neighbors, and we had bicycles and pavement and, nicer clothes. But I was absolutely miserable. I just missed haiku. I missed running in the bushes, and I missed the leaky tin roof and the rain in general. And more than anything, I really, really, really missed eggs. I just really did. Another favorite chore of mine was every morning it was my job to crawl underneath the house because I was the little one that could fit under there and go gather all the eggs because that's where the chickens would make their nest. And my mom always taught me to leave one egg in every nest so that the mama chickens will always come back and keep laying. And they weren't any eggs. They were beautiful. They were brown and green and blue and beige, and my favorite were always the blues. But I love them. They're my favorite food. And when we moved to the subdivision, I remember my mom making me eggs one day, and I freaked out in the middle of breakfast and said, these taste weird. Like, Mom, what's wrong with these eggs, And she just said, oh, honey, they're store-bought. And being still kind of young, I just thought like, oh, they're fake, And so store-bought, okay, got it, they're fake. And so after that, every morning when she'd say, do you want breakfast, want some eggs? I'd say, are they real or are they fake? She's like, they're still fake. I'm like, no, thank you. And so even though my parents were so proud that they are now able to kind of give us a better life and provide us more things, I think it was very apparent that we had left our hearts in haiku. But of course, time goes on, you adapt. I got used to eating fake eggs. Christy and I got more involved with our friends and our social lives, and just all together, our whole family depended on nature a lot less. We didn't really have to anymore. And before I knew it, I was a senior in high school, and it was time to graduate, and it was also time to just answer that question, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to be when you grow up? And I wanted to do art. I wanted to be an artist. But every single time I told any adult or any teacher that that was my plan and kind of wanted some guidance on it, the guidance was basically, don't do it. Like, do not do that. You can keep that as a hobby. That's a great art. That's a great hobby. But career, it's not going to work. Like, it's too hard. It doesn't happen. Choose something else. And so I did. I went to my other go-to passion, which is always food. And I decided that I would get my degree in culinary arts. But even at that moment when I decided that, I remember I was 18 years old and I made a secret little bargain or wish with the universe. And I just said, okay, I'm filling out this application. And hey, look, I'm saying that I'm going into culinary arts right now because I just need a path to choose. But if you could please just let something art-related fall into my lap in the meantime, change that course, I'd really appreciate it. And then a few years later, I was there with my culinary arts degree and starting a job in the restaurant business. You know, I had dabbled in art classes whenever I could in college, but I always had the excuse, oh, I'm just filling this space, filling this hour. And now here I was graduated. I had no more excuses for taking art. And I really just felt not so stoked. And it was right around that time when my sister, who was living on the mainland, we both flew home to Maui. And we went home for the holidays. And this one day when we got bored, we just decided, you know, we should go drive out to Haiku. So we drove and we tried to find our old property, and it was a lot harder than we thought. Like, Maui had just changed so much that it was different. And then we finally found it, and we were so happy, only to get there and see that the house was no longer there. I mean, it was gone completely. We had heard that it had been deemed unlivable, and I'm sure by the picture you can tell it, you know, maybe it was, but we didn't expect them to just throw it away, you know. That was our home. Like, it hurt. And the two of us ended up just walking around where the house was and tried to imagine where our bedroom was that my sister, my brother, and I all shared, or where our animals lived. And then we both just kind of looked towards the woods. And my sister just gave me this nervous smirk, and she didn't even say anything, but she just started walking. And the two of us just started walking back into the woods. And then our pace got a little faster, and before long, we were walking with this sense of purpose because we needed this, you know, like. And right when we got to that clearing, I just wanted to turn around because I was so afraid of being disappointed. You know, the house was already gone, and that really bummed me out. But before I could even process that thought, we saw him. And he was just as big and just as beautiful and just as amazing as he had been in our memories. It wasn't just that we were small at the time. This was a cool rock. And we both ran up to him. God, Rock! We missed you! And threw our arms around him and climbed on him and laid on him and ate strawberry guavas on him and just told him how good it was to see him again. And we ended up staying there all day until our hearts were just so satisfied. And we were just truly reconnected with our roots again. And that day, it really changed me. It really just got me thinking. And it made me realize that, okay, so maybe we shouldn't have taken Mom's blankets and covered him up, you know, but I mean, what a beautiful gesture to have these two kids who are trying to take care of nature the best way that they know how to. the same way our own parents took care of us. And maybe the real problem was just that we somehow knew we had to keep it a secret. We somehow knew that this magical thing that we believed in wouldn't really fly in anybody else's conversation. And the more I thought about that, the more I realized that that was exactly how I was living my life. That's how I had been living my life ever since then, is keeping my dreams a secret, having them be magical in my head, but never saying them in front of anyone else or expressing them, because you don't want the world to laugh at you and you don't want them to crush it. And the more I thought about it, it wasn't right. I didn't like it, And so I came back to Oahu, seriously a changed person. And that one afternoon with God Rock taught me so much about myself. It taught me that I love painting. I love art. It makes me happy. I don't care if I'm going to try this and fail. It makes me feel something. And just the same way that God Rock made me feel something, that's enough. As long as something makes you feel something, that's enough to try and believe in it and go for it. And so I did. And I enrolled full-time right back into a community college and took art classes. And it really didn't make sense to anyone. It didn't make sense to my coworkers who saw how busy I was, and it didn't even make sense to the professors who were teaching me because I wasn't doing it for a degree. But I painted, and I kept painting, and I painted a lot. And the more that I painted, the more it also became clear to me that another thing I really loved and really missed was my connection to the ocean. I missed how much my parents took care of the ocean and how much it took care of them back. I missed how my dad would take me diving with him to go get our dinners. It was my favorite place to be as a kid because it was truly a world where I could fly. And it also was just amazing to watch my dad dive down as I just would put in my order that I would like a lobster for dinner tonight, or a kumu, or whatever it was, and have him bring it back up to me. And the way my parents would work together to cook these fish, that was something that I didn't have in my life anymore. And so, once again, motivated by this whole change I felt within, I knew I am going to learn to dive again. And that's what I set out to do. And so anytime I saw a spear fisherman or a diver coming out of the water with fish or at a barbecue, I would introduce myself and tell them hi, I love diving too. Oh yeah, you dive? Yeah, I did. When I was 6, you think you could take me? And they'd be like, oh yeah, sure. And then my phone would never ring. And finally, it started to occur to me that maybe, once again, people weren't really taking me seriously. But I knew how important it was this time. And so I went out and I just got an old 3-prong, the same kind my dad had, and I started to go on my own. And to my surprise, I was actually able to get fish. Just enough to feed me for the night. But that was amazing to me. It turned out that all those early years spent in the water with my dad, I learned to be comfortable in the ocean. I learned to hold my breath. I learned how to stay calm. I knew all the different fish identifications, and I knew which ones I wanted to eat. I knew where they lived. And I had watched him for years go down and get them for me. And so when I actually tried years later to get them to myself, it wasn't easy, but it also wasn't impossible. And I was able to get, like I said, just enough to feed myself. And within a little bit of time, enough to feed the people that I care about. And that is what really returned my heart to who I was, and nothing mattered anymore. It really didn't. It didn't matter if I was ever going to become successful, make money, all that kind of stuff. I had something that added such a quality to my life that I couldn't live without it anymore. And I ended up actually quitting my job and saying to my boss that I'm going to now pursue art. And when she said to me, well, okay, but what else are you going to do? I just remember her face when I said, oh, I'm also going to do spearfishing, and the look of concern she had for me, I was just like, I know. But within no time, I fell into the hands of these national champions who had heard about this really enthusiastic girl that just loves diving and decided to make me their little project. And these guys taught me to dive on a whole new level. They took my dreams and expanded them. They took something I believed in and they showed me things I didn't even know were possible. The depths that they would hit, the fish that we started to get, just the different encounters we had in the ocean. And above all, the way that as good as they were, they remained selective and respectful of what they were hunting for. I was in love. I loved it so much. I had so much gratitude for these guys that in 2008, I decided that I really wanted to honor them. I wanted to thank them. I wanted to show them that everything they taught me wasn't going to be wasted. And so to do that, I decided that I would follow in their footsteps and I would enter the United States National Championships. And, it goes all over and it comes to California and Hawaii, but of course, the year that I decided this, it ends up being in Rhode Island. It was nothing like diving Hawaii at all. And I was not a sponsored athlete. It took me every penny I had to get there, plus fundraising. And I only made it there 4 days before the tournament. And so I had to figure out, how to dive this place. And when I got in the water, I freaked out. I was used to blue water and, studying the reef and seeing the fish and making decisions from the surface and then going down and seeing what happens. But that wasn't the case. I was in green water. I had no idea how deep it was. I couldn't see my own fins. I would dive down. Okay, good. There's the bottom. I see brown. I'd go right through the bottom. I'm like, what? Okay, relax. There's the bottom. I see black. I'd go right through that and immediately just bolt up to the surface, gasping for air. And I seriously started to think I was never going to find the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. But I calmed down, trusted that it was there, and finally on one drop, I did make it all the way to the bottom. And when I did, I noticed that the mussels on the bottom filtered the water just enough where I could see. And even when I couldn't quite see, I learned to listen. And for the first time in my life, I could hear a fish move. I could hear it. And 4 days later, I became the national champion. And thank you. In fact, I won every single category that I was eligible to place in. And I also got named the Rookie of the Year. And that was a wonderful, wonderful moment for me. And it really ended up kind of changing my life instantly. When I came home, people liked me. And they knew me, or they thought they knew me, and I was put on the covers of magazines, and people wanted to write articles about me. And, and they started to, little revealing, they started to highlight my other talents, like cooking and art. And before I knew it, I got my name out there. My art started to sell. And it felt like all of my dreams had finally come true. And it wasn't the publicity. It was the fact that other people believed in my dreams, they don't just believe in it, they're cheering me on, they're trying to help me. I have people now trying to sponsor me, and just people who care, and it makes them happy. And it was the most awesome feeling in the world. But as tricky as life can often be, I got a little confused because I appreciated the support so much. I had so much gratitude for the support, and I kind of all related it to winning that title. And so then I kind of got a little lost, and I felt like in order to not let all these people down, I had to keep winning. And that became my focus for a little while. And so I did. I just kept competing. And you know, the more that I competed, the more I realized something down here didn't feel so good. And it wasn't that I have anything against competition. It's just that for every title I won, that was just one more thing I had to now defend. And anytime I came in second or third, I felt like I came in dead last. Like I just felt like, I don't know, something wasn't right. Something didn't feel right to me. And it didn't take me very long to realize that. A whole year later, I just kind of knew, like, this isn't why I got into diving. You know, it was awesome and everything, but I didn't get into diving to think of fish as points and scores. I got into diving because fish is food. And I like food. And I like being in that underwater world, and I want to make sure that I'm still diving for those reasons. And recognizing that same voice, the same one that I told myself I'm not going to hold down anymore, I knew what I had to do. I was kind of sad, but I just knew, like, it's only been a year, but I'm going to stop competing. You know, I'm not going to make it my goal, at least. And I'm going to go back to diving just for food, just to feed the people I love. And yes, I still want to travel for diving, but just not necessarily for one day of competition. I want to travel to see the world. I want to travel to see different cultures and see, like, how they manage their natural resources, how they can hunt sustainably, how they eat their fish. I just want to explore the world above and below the surface. I want to catch fish when I travel, just a few fish to eat over a campfire with a couple of friends. Or better yet, catch fish and give it back to the local community, give it back to the people who truly need it the most. That is what I want to do. And even though I knew that making this decision was going to let a lot of people down and I would probably lose all of my sponsors, I made it anyway. And to my surprise, that didn't happen at all. Like, it turned out that people were they felt a much stronger connection to traveling and diving for these reasons than they did just chasing trophies. And I didn't lose my sponsors, I got better ones, like the company Patagonia, who care a lot more about sustainability than they do contests and whatnot. And so basically, when I chose the title tonight, Trusting Nature, okay, well, actually, I didn't choose it. I had no idea what I was going to talk about. I called my sister, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but Karina needs a title by today, so I need to at least give her a title. She said, Trusting Nature. And so I mean, that's really why I chose it, but what I'd like to bring that around to is I feel that even if you didn't grow up, you know, in the boonies of haiku, living off nature, depending on it, I think you can cultivate this mindset no matter what it is that you do. I know that just in these past few days of doing yoga, I've seen the similarities in all of it. And I think that also nature is within all of us. You know, we have these natural instincts. We have this inner being. We have this voice, this gut, whatever it is, this guidance you want to call it. The same thing that tells you just when you feel good or when you don't feel good. And I think that being able to trust that, listen to it, and own it is just a very important thing that we need to do more. And so anyway, I'm just going to show a few more photos of my underwater explorations and my travels, and I'm just going to say a few words about what I have learned from them. I've learned that When everything around you is chaotic and crazy, you do have the ability to stay calm, to stay centered, to stay grounded. I've learned that those moments underwater where I just start to freak out and think, I'm running out of time, I gotta do this more quickly, I need air, that's usually the best indicator that it's time to slow down and move more slowly and just take more time. I've learned that you can be vulnerable and strong, and that in fact, you're probably at your strongest when you're able to embrace being vulnerable. I've learned that living a simple life, for me, it just leaves a lot more room for imagination, creativity, and wonder. And I've learned that wherever it is that you feel the most you, that you feel the most connected, you owe it to yourself to spend some time there on a regular basis. And the more that you do, the more magic will happen over and over again. But above all, I think I just learned that whatever it is that you dream about, whatever it is that you believe in, whatever it is that makes you feel anything, don't be afraid to own it. Don't be afraid to say it, and don't be afraid to believe in it, because it's that exactly that makes you special. Okay, so I'm just gonna play a quick little video. It's only 4 minutes. It's basically just a video that kind of says my message of sustainability and diving and respecting your prey.
Growing up on an island taught me to live off the land and the ocean, and that we need to work together. My name is Kimi Werner. Hunting has taught me that no matter what I want to pursue in life, nothing is going to beat hours spent in the field, observing, watching, learning, living. This is my field. Spearfishing is my favorite way to collect food, and it's the most selective way that I know to hunt. You have one breath, one drop, and one shot to get one fish. It gives me great appreciation to know where my food comes from, and also to know that it lived a wild and free life. I don't really feel that it should be man and the ecosystem, because I don't think that we're separate. I believe that man is a part of the ecosystem. And realizing that helps me to strive to find my place in it. I definitely don't think that I'm at the top of the food chain. Finding my place is knowing that my place can change at any given second. Spearfishing prepared me for one of the most intense moments of my life. I was on a trip to study great white sharks, and with the captain's permission, I got to free dive. I had my head out of the water and I was fixing my mask as my buddy Morgan slipped in after me. He immediately started shaking me and warning me. I knew what I was going to see before I even looked. 3 feet away from me was the head of the biggest great white I had ever seen. To my surprise, I let out a squeal and I started swimming towards her. All of my years spent hunting taught me how to read a fish's body language. The way that she was moving, the way that her fins were out, all of it just showed me that she wasn't looking at me as prey. At one point, she started swimming up directly towards me. So I took a drop and started swimming down directly towards her. And we just sort of met in the middle. But as she got closer, she completely slowed down to the point where her tail almost stopped moving, and I just sort of landed on top of her. My hand reached out and connected with her dorsal fin, and we just started to glide together. I know that she could have eaten me at any second had she wanted to, but in this moment, we're just two animals, two predators, just swimming together. This moment really confirmed to me that we're all so vulnerable and so dependent on one another, and that we have to take care of each other. Because the moment we stop taking care of nature, that's when everything's gonna be lost. Whether it's respecting the plants that we eat, the animals we hunt, or even the ones that might be hunting us. It's all a beautiful thing, and we're all in it together.
Thank you so much. Thank you.